170 Chinese Poems, as translated by Arthur Waley. I will not fit all 170 poems in this reading. Battle by Chu Yuan, 332 to 295 BC, author of the famous poem Li Sao, or Falling into Trouble. Finding that he could not influence the conduct of his prince, he drowned himself in the river Milo. The modern Dragon Boat Festival is supposed to be in his honor. We grasp our battle spears, we don our breastplates of hide. The axles of our chariots touch, our short swords meet. Standards obscure the sun, the foe roll up like clouds. Arrows fall thick, the warriors press forward. They menace our ranks, they break our line. The left-hand trace horse is dead, the one on the right is smitten. The fallen horses block our wheels, they impede the yoke horses. They grasp their jade drumsticks, they beat the sounding drums. Heaven decrees their fall, the dread powers are angry. The warriors are all dead, they lie on the moor field. They issued, but shall not enter. They went, but shall not return. The plains are flat and wide, the way home is long. Their swords lie beside them, their black bows in their hand. Though their limbs were torn, their hearts could not be repressed. They were more than brave, they were inspired with the spirit of Wu. Steadfast to the end, they could not be daunted. Their bodies were stricken, but their souls have taken immortality. Captains among the ghosts, heroes among the dead. The Man Wind and the Woman Wind, a Fu or prose poem by Sun Yu, 4th century BC, nephew of Chu Yuan. He sang, King of Chu was feasting on the Orchid Tower Palace, with Sun Yu and Ching Chai to wait upon him. A gust of wind blew in, and the king bared his breast to meet it, saying, "How pleasant a thing is this wind which I share with the common people." Sun Yu answered, "This is the great king's wind. The common people cannot share it." The king said, "Wind is a spirit of heaven and earth. It comes widespread and does not choose between noble and base, or between high and low. How can you say, 'This is the king's wind'?" Sung answered, "I have heard it taught that in the crooked lemon tree birds make their nests into empty spaces winds fly. But the wind spirit that comes to different things is not the same." The king said, "Where is the wind born?" And Sung answered, "The wind is born in the ground. It rises in the extremities of the green ping flower. It pours into the river valleys and rages at the mouth of the pass. It follows the rolling flanks of Mount Tai and dances beneath the pine trees and cypresses. In gusty bouts it whirls, it rushes in fiery anger. It rumbles low with a noise like thunder, tearing down rocks and trees, smiting forests and grasses. But at last abating, it spreads abroad, seeks empty places, and crosses the threshold of rooms. And so, growing gentler and clearer, it changes and is dispersed and dies." It is this cool, clear man-wind that, freeing itself, falls and rises till it climbs the high walls of the castle and enters the gardens of the inner palace. It bends the flowers and leaves with its breath. It wanders among the osmanthus and pepper trees. It lingers over the fretted face of the pond to steal the soul of the hibiscus. It touches the willow leaves and scatters the fragrant herbs. Then it pauses in the courtyard, and turning to the north goes up to the jade hall, shakes the hanging curtains, and lightly passes into the inner room. And so it becomes the great king's wind. Now, such a wind is fresh and sweet to breathe, and its gentle murmuring cures the diseases of men, blows away the stupor of wine, sharpens the sight and hearing, and refreshes the body. This is what is called the great king's wind. The king said, "You have well described it. Now tell me of the common people's wind." Sung said, The common people's wind rises from narrow lanes and streets, carrying clouds of dust. Rushing to empty spaces, it attacks the gateway, scatters the dust heap, sends the cinders flying, pokes among foul and rotting things, till at last it enters the tiled windows and reaches the rooms of the cottage. Now this wind is heavy and turgid, oppressing man's heart. It brings fever to his body, ulcers to his lips, and dimness to his eyes. It shakes him with coughing. It kills him before his time. Such is the woman wind of the common people. The following is a sample of Sung Yu's prose. Master Teng Tu by Sung Yu, 3rd century BC. One day when the chamberlain, Master Teng Tu, was in attendance at the palace, he warned the king against Sung Yu, saying, "Yu is a man of handsome features and calm bearing, and his tongue is prompt with subtle sentences. Moreover, his character is licentious. I would submit that your majesty is ill-advised in allowing him to follow you into the queen's apartments." The king repeated Teng Tu's words to Sung Yu. Yu replied, "My beauty of face and calmness of bearing were given me by heaven. Subtlety of speech I learned from my teachers. As for my character, I deny that it is licentious." The king said, "Can you substantiate your statement that you are not licentious? If you cannot, you must leave the court." Sung Yu said, "Of all the women in the world, the most beautiful are the women of the land of Chu. And in the land of Chu there are none like the women of my own village. And in my village there are none that can be compared with the girl next door. The girl next door would be too tall if an inch were added to her height, and too short if an inch were taken away. Another grain of powder would make her too pale. Another touch of rouge would make her too red. Her eyebrows are like the plumage of the kingfisher. Her flesh is like snow. Her waist is like a roll of new silk. Her teeth are like little shells. A single one of her smiles would perturb the whole city of Yang and derange the suburb of Xiasai. For 3 years this lady has been climbing the garden wall and peeping at me. Yet I have never succumbed." How different is the behavior of Master Teng Tu! His wife has a woolly head and misshapen ears, projecting teeth irregularly set, a crook in her back and a halt in her gait. Moreover, she has running sores in front and behind. Yet Teng Tu fell in love with her and caused her to bear him 5 children. I would have your majesty consider which of us is the debauchee. Sung Yu was not dismissed from court. The Orphan, anonymous, 1st century BC. To be an orphan, to be fated to be an orphan, how bitter is this lot! When my father and mother were alive, I used to ride in a carriage with 4 fine horses. But when they both died, my brother and sister-in-law sent me out to be a merchant. In the south I traveled to the 9 rivers, and in the east as far as Chi and Lu. At the end of the year, when I came home, I dared not tell them what I had suffered, of the lice and vermin in my head, of the dust in my face and eyes. My brother told me to get ready the dinner. My sister-in-law told me to see after the horses. I was always going up into the hall and running down again to the parlor. My tears fell like rain. In the morning they sent me to draw water. I didn't get back till nightfall. My hands were all sore, and I had no shoes. I walked the cold earth, treading on thorns and brambles. As I stopped to pull out the thorns, how bitter my heart was! My tears fell and fell, and I went on sobbing and sobbing. In winter I have no greatcoat, nor in summer thin clothes. It is no pleasure to be alive. I had rather quickly leave the earth and go beneath the yellow springs. The April winds blow, and the grass is growing green. In the 3rd month, silkworms and mulberries. In the 6th month, the melon harvest. I went out with the melon cart, and just as I was coming home, the melon cart turned over. The people who came to help me were few, but the people who ate the melons were many. All they left me was the stalks to take home as fast as I could. My brother and sister-in-law were harsh. They asked me all sorts of awful questions. Why does everyone in the village hate me? I want to write a letter and send it to my mother and father under the earth, and tell them I can't go on any longer living with my brother and sister-in-law. The sick wife. She had been ill for years and years. She sent for me to say something. She couldn't say what she wanted because of the tears that kept coming of themselves. I have burdened you with orphan children, 2 or 3. Don't let our children go hungry or cold. If they do wrong, don't slap or beat them. When you take out the baby, rock it in your arms. Don't forget to do that. Last, she said, when I carried them in my arms, they had no clothes, and now their jackets have no linings. She dies. I shut the doors and barred the windows, and left the motherless children. When I got to the market and met my friends, I wept. I sat down and could not go with them. I asked them to buy some cakes for my children. In the presence of my friends I sobbed and cried. I tried not to grieve, but sorrow would not cease. I felt in my pocket and gave my friends some money. When I got home, I found my children, calling to be taken into their mother's arms. I walked up and down in the empty room, this way and that a long while. When I went away from it and said to myself, I will forget and never speak of her again. Cock-crow Song, anonymous, 1st century B.C. In the eastern quarter dawn breaks, the stars flicker pale. The morning cock at Yunnan mounts the wall and crows. The songs are over, the clock run down, but still the feast is set. The moon grows dim and the stars are few. Morning has come to the world. At 1,000 gates and 10,000 doors the fish-shaped keys turn. Round the palace and up by the castle the crows and magpies are flying. And that concludes this particular reading of 170 Chinese poems as translated by Arthur Waley.